Hello, everyone, and welcome to Discover Rising Tides, How the Outside Makes the Inside Better. I am Jeanne Gallagher, and I am here with our longevity specialist, Denise Stegall. Hey,
Oh,
Denise.
hello, hello. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing great. It is such a gorgeous day here, and I have these two
You have
fawns
an
that are,
audience.
we do. One of them just keeps coming up to my window. It's hysterical. Like it's just they're so cute, and they're in the back of the house, so I'm okay with that. When they're in the front where my flower garden is, I'm not happy. But when they're in the
Not
back,
happy.
it's really fun. So they're eating all of the yummy plants that are growing here, which, is all healthy for them. This
That's
is
right.
healthy
Eat
food
real
for them.
food.
They're eating real food. They're eating real deer food.
Oh, so we're continuing our conversation on the win, right? And I think we're down to the N.
We
And
are, we are at
yeah,
the N in nutrition or N in win.
yes. So nutritious practices, correct?
Yes, nutritious practices. When I was putting win together, like you had to have something kind of fun. And obviously, since so much of what I do, the basis of what I do with my clients is nutrition, nourishing foods. But nourishing your body is obviously more than food. So that's why I really like this concept of nourishing practices. Um, because truly, if we want to sustain our vitality and this longevity that we're all seeking, we don't always talk about it in that way, but it really is. We want to feel good, look good, have the energy today, tomorrow, next week, and well into the future. Truly, we have to look a little bit deeper than just eating real food. It really does. It really requires having good habits.
I like how you say that too, because when you hear the word nourishing, you're thinking about what goes into my body versus what do I do in addition to what goes into my body. Really
Exactly.
important to realize that it's more than just one thing.
Right. It is. And it's more than two things. I mean, it's really a combination of things. And I was at a conference earlier today, a talk earlier this morning, who was the functional medicine doctor was talking about the Breslin protocol, which is about Alzheimer's, which I know your conversation later in this episode is about the Curing Alzheimer's Disease
Mhm.
Foundation. And so it's interesting, like they've come up with 7 factors or 7 things that you need to do on a regular basis, all 7 of them, not just one or two, but all of them. And so what we'll talk about today really does incorporate them. And of course, number one is the food piece.
Mhm.
And more than just eating real food, it's developing a routine around your meals, including meal planning, meal prepping, eating at pretty regular times. That is something that most people struggle with.
Mhm. Or busy, yeah, kids, work, running late, dinner at 10 o'clock at night.
Right.
Exaggeration, but that is what happens quite often.
Right. And that actually, eating later and then going to bed, an hour later or 2 hours later actually messes with our digestion. It increases our fasting glucose. And it actually inhibits our ability to get restful sleep.
Hmm.
So, keeping a routine. I mean, we usually have dinner around 7:30. That for most people, that's late, but that's just kind of how our lifestyle is. Um, so I try to stick with that, even if we're going out to dinner. It's really important to try to stay with that because you think about it, your body has to
Mhm.
digest food
Mhm.
too. And again, we want to be eating real food and eating good food, but we also want to be able to digest it and metabolize it. So it's actually doing the things that we need it to do. Another piece of this, and this is something that you'll understand really well, is balancing your intake of the macros, the
Mhm.
protein, healthy fats, and carbohydrates. Because what happens, and I've known myself, I've always been a bit of a carboholic. I eat a lot of fruits and veggies. They have carbohydrates. I've always eaten a more plant forward diet. So that's, whole grains and beans and legumes. But as I've gotten older, that doesn't necessarily work for my body. So there is a little bit of research that I would say you need to do about your body and try to figure out, like, how do you feel better having more protein? Do you feel better if you include more healthy fats, nuts and seeds, olive oil and avocados, those kinds of things? And once those are balanced, because most of us have we're so carbohydrate high in carbohydrates that it actually affects, again, it affects the way we sleep. It affects the way we feel. It affects the way we move. And that's today. If we don't fix that today, how the heck are we going to feel great in 10 years?
I had no idea that I was so carb heavy either until I started to track it. And the tracking's not hard. The decision to track is hard. The tracking's not hard. But then I realized, just to your point, that how much better I feel with more protein, and especially as we get older, and actually how much better I feel with a higher fat diet and a lower carb diet. Would never have. So does it take a little bit of, not a lit, it takes a lot of conscious decisions, of what am I choosing to have right now? And, but it doesn't mean I'm going without either. I'm eating more food now than I used to.
Right, because at one point you were so, and this is what happens with people, especially women, we are so stuck in this, like, we have to count every calorie. And, not every calorie you don't get the same amount, the same bang for your buck for every calorie, right? If you have a bag of potato chips, that's 200 calories, and a piece of chicken, that's 200 calories. One, what's going to make you feel better? But what's also going to keep you fuller longer?
Right.
So I think that's really an important piece of it. But again, it's not just that, how you're feeling, and we will get back a little bit. I'll get into physical health in a second, but it's really that mental and emotional well-being that comes along with these nourishing practices. They have such an profound impact on the way your brain functions, the way your mood and your stress is. And all of those, the mood and stress, we think, oh, if you're in a bad mood, I'm depressed. Depression is a real thing, and it is a real clinical diagnosis. It's also something that can be directly affected with what you're eating. And when you're eating, again, it's kind of, it goes hand in hand. You could be eating really great, but if you're eating at 2 o'clock in the morning, that's not a good thing either. So kind of takes it takes the healthy part of the food and just kind of throws it up in the air, and it just
really
gives you this.
Disrupts your circadian rhythm.
It does. It does. Did you know that the foods that you eat can actually prevent cognitive decline, even reverse some signs of brain function that is declining? Did you know that?
I did not.
You did
Tell
not.
me more.
Tell you more. And it's so funny. We talk about this all the time, and just as we're extrapolating, like all of our conversations, like, oh, I didn't know that. So cognitive decline, what would we eat? We want to eat foods that boost our mental health. Foods like omega-3 fatty acids. We want to make sure we're eating those cold water fatty fishes. We want to make sure we're eating probiotics, which help the gut biome, and definitely fiber. And real fiber. If you need to take a fiber supplement, okay, fine, but we really should be getting our fiber from our diet. Another one of the things that I think we underestimate is the power of restorative sleep. Not just, I'm going to go to sleep, I'm going to take a nap. But I mean true restorative sleep, that 7 to 9 hours that is recommended. And depending on who you are, sometimes, people do great with 7. Some people need 9. I'm great at 8 hours. I'm an 8-hour girl. And the interesting piece is this is absolutely essential for longevity. Why? Our hormones, our hormonal secretions, basically, and brain recovery, body recovery, all happen between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m.
Mm.
So how many times are people going to bed, 12 o'clock at night? They're up on the weekends till 2 in the afternoon, and then go to bed 3 o'clock in the morning, and then they sleep till 9. Well, you've completely missed out on a full day's restorative sleep. Now, you can sleep from 3 a.m. till 9 a.m. and feel, yeah, okay, I'm sort of refreshed, but you actually have not done a thing for your brain health. And truly, if you continue to, kind of not have a normal sleep cycle, those circadian rhythms, as you mentioned, our bodies are meant, when the sun comes up, we're meant to be awake. As the day goes on, our cortisol levels kind of start to pop during the day when the sun comes up, and then they lower as the day goes on. And then, of course, what happens? Your melatonin rises. Melatonin helps you sleep. Well, if you're disrupting that rhythm by not sleeping and staying awake till all hours of the day, you are, one, knocking yourself out of rhythm, and absolutely going to send your hormones in a tizzy.
Yeah. And for those people that work a third shift, all these other steps are so important to think about, because you're sleeping on the off schedule. And that is what you do. So it's more important to eat real foods and take care of yourself and have good nourishing practices as well, to combat that sleep change.
Absolutely. And work with a professional. I think sometimes we don't think about going to, have a health coach or go to the doctor unless something's wrong. Well, sometimes those, I know my mom was telling me the other day, like she had her yearly wellness checkup. It's not a bad idea for all of us to be doing that. I mean, when we were kids, right, our mom, before we went to school, we went to the doctor for a checkup. We get out of the practice as we get older. And then what happens is we get, into our 60s and 70s and 80s, and all we seem to be doing is going to the doctor. And at that stage, it's no longer preventative. So prevention is key. And everything that we're talking about is about prevention.
Exactly. And so if you have questions, get with Denise. She is the longevity specialist, and she's an amazing coach, and you've listened to her quite often, and she is going to be your resource. So thank you. Thank you for this win.
Absolutely.
Give us the W, Eat Whole Foods.
Yes, is Inspired Choices.
Inspired Choices. P.
And Nourishing Practices.
And Nourishing Practices.
that would be WIP.
Yeah.
So
we're gonna look you into
Foods, Inspired Choices, and Nourishing Practices.
Thank you, Denise, very much.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. This is Jeanne Gallagher, Discover Rising Tides, and I want to just take a moment to talk about my friend, Denise Stegall. I am honored to call her as a friend, and I'm so grateful that she gives us her insight during our shows, each show, and talks about healthy living, eating real food. You hear Denise say, eat real food a lot. Well, she means it, and she knows what she's talking about. She is an amazing healthy living coach, curator at Living Healthy List. And if you ever have any questions about what is real food, why does it matter? How does that apply to me? How do I change? What do I need to do? How do I even create a healthy living shopping list? Make sure that you call her. She is your healthy living coach, and you can find her at healthylivinglist.com. Hello and welcome to Discover Rising Tides, How the Outside Makes the Inside Better. My name is Jeanne Gallagher, and thank you so much for listening. And today I'm very excited to be introducing to you Anna Shelander. Hi, Anna. How are you?
I'm really good, Jeanne. Thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, I'm very excited. This is such an important message and so much information that you have to give to our listeners. So before we start, just to let people know that Anna is the founder of the nonprofit foundation, Curing Alzheimer's Disease Foundation. And Anna, tell us about the foundation and what does it do and what do you do for the foundation?
Yeah, great questions. So the Curing Alzheimer's Disease Foundation is a nonprofit. We founded this organization 2 years ago. We are actually doing two things. Our primary mission is to fund research into what is called, well, backing up.
Mhm.
What we do is we fund research, but we do it differently. Most foundations in this space, if they do actually fund research, they're funding lots of research. And we decided to approach matters a little bit differently. We decided to select one laboratory and to see the science through. So we are actually working with the University of Minnesota,
Mhm.
and the Alzheimer's Legacy Lab is the one that we've selected. And what they're working on is the microbial or the infectious hypothesis to Alzheimer's. We'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. We also are right now working on a prevention educational series
Mhm.
because in the process of getting to here, we've learned a lot. And there's a lot of great evidence-based information that can actually help us prevent Alzheimer's disease. And with that understanding that an, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, this is really going to be the better way to go because this will be something that likely will keep people from not only developing Alzheimer's, but potentially other dementias and to live a healthier and longer life.
Really interesting. So one thing I wanted to touch on before you get into the workings of the work that you're doing, the finite approach. When you're focusing just on one thing, how does that change what's done in this arena? And how does it make you different? And what are the benefits of that?
Excellent questions. So jumping back, research has historically, scientific research has historically been funded by large grants from the government. And as I had mentioned before, corporate entities, foundations, the Alzheimer's Association, great example. Cure-Alls, another great example. Um, but what happens is there's not a lot of continuity
Mhm.
when you have multiple funders at the table. Also, when you're dealing with government grants, they are extremely linear, and it comes with an application. The application has to be well in advance, clear as to the direction the researcher is going to go. And science is very, very creative. Right.
Mm.
It's innovative, and it is a lot of things happen along the way that you can't anticipate. And so what unfortunately will happen for the researcher is that the researcher will have to set aside something novel that comes out of the research and essentially cite it in a conclusion for someone else to pick up because that isn't in line with the grant that they've been awarded.
Mm.
So what we're doing, by the fact that we are not the government and we are a private funder to this scientific journey, is we're allowing the scientists to actually pivot if
Mhm.
something like that were to happen, which is, wow, very, very strongly embraced by the research team. But we think it's going to bring about novel solutions more effectively and probably faster. In
Mhm.
addition, we aren't that administrative oversight that a lot of times comes with research that is funded by a government entity. And therefore, our researchers will be able to dedicate all of their time to the research, as
Mhm.
opposed to, I think it's somewhere around 30% is spent working in administrative duty. And so again, this is going to streamline the process, and we think we're going to get there sooner. And we're intending to stay at the table the entire time to see the science through.
That's fascinating. And I would think that that would also give a scientist a bit of hope for their work to open that creativity window and allow them to delve into the areas that are presenting themselves versus, oh, that's not on my paper. I need to hopefully remember to tell somebody or may hopefully somebody else will write a paper that's focused on that. And it gives that scientist the direction or the self motivation, the self management to do what they're gifted to do.
Absolutely. We're really excited. We think it's this could be revolutionary. This could actually change how research is funded.
Mhm.
Um, we have great hopes for that.
Mm. I can see that and how that would affect other diseases and that are in a more traditionally researched manner.
Exactly. Without
Now, you
question.
said that you're developing an educational series as well, in tandem with the research that's being done, and that's also innovative, isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting. Prevention, right? So,
Mhm.
uh, when we started on that path, which is a second mission or a second service that we're providing to the community, I was surprised to find that there's really not a lot in that category or in that space.
Mhm.
There are certain programs, but interestingly, they're tough on deployment. That's been a caveat that organizations have struggled with. And there's a lot of stuff you'll find on the internet, but it's really it doesn't delve deeply into topics with the explanation as to why this is a prevention strategy. I'll give a great example: diet,
Mhm.
which is Denise's thing, and she's great at it.
She's
Um,
amazing at it.
she is, and she understands really what's happening to our food source and how we can kind of reclaim um the basic I can't even speak for her because she's the expert in this area, but that we can find foods that are higher in nutrition and therefore more beneficial for our body. But in that area, we're always being told the Mediterranean diet, the mind diet. You're going to hear that all the time, but what I'm not seeing in this information, and it goes with the other pillars or principles that would be protective, is why and what is it about those
Mm.
foods that are beneficial. And that's what we're endeavoring to do, is to really explain to the individual who's concerned or sensitive to Alzheimer's or any related dementia, why this particular food is more beneficial than, say, an alternative. And we intend to do that with what we call the 4 different principles. And again, differentiating ourselves from any of the other programs that are out there. We're focusing not only on food and sleep and exercise and mindfulness, but we're also integrating oral health, which is different than
Wow.
any other program out there. And we believe that's actually the
Why
primary oral health. Pardon me? Did you?
Why is oral health so different?
Right.
Why
Great.
not, no, no,
Great.
no, bad question. So
And
why
that,
is it so important?
yeah, and that's a great question because that actually brings me to the story. So, this is an interesting aspect. When you look at Alzheimer's disease, you look at risk factors, and we
Mhm.
absolutely know it's an age-related disease, meaning the older you get, the higher your likelihood of contracting this disease becomes. The second most prevalent, or one of your second highest risk factor, which is interesting because not a lot of people understand this, is periodontal disease, gum disease. So we go down the line, we've got being genetically female, that also interplays into Alzheimer's risk. And then we go,
Mhm.
the next down is going to be autoimmune diseases, starting with diabetes. Interestingly, with being female at birth, so biologically female,
Mhm.
and having an autoimmune disease, both of those two situations or conditions rather, yield dry mouth, which actually prompts periodontal disease. So those two
Wow.
can maybe be
Interesting.
somewhat comorbid or they might be correlative. But when you go right back to it, periodontal disease is the overarching second highest risk factor for this disease. And we want to know why. Now, my
Mm.
background is in dental. My father was actually a dentist, and so this comes our story. And my father developed Alzheimer's, but it was never diagnosed because he kept reversing the symptoms. And he was doing that by medicating for periodontal disease. So, a little bit about dental offices, and anybody who's watching this, I suggest when you go to your dentist next, and I want you to do that, you should be going
Mhm.
routinely. Ask your hygienist, like, do you see an overlap between gum disease, periodontal disease, and Alzheimer's or dementia? And you will hear a resounding yes, because that is something that in that particular discipline, we see all the time. We see people that have chronic gum disease are not getting in front of it with good home care, and they develop eventually dementia. And then we don't see them. And then later on, we find out they've died of oftentimes an Alzheimer's diagnosis. So this has been a perplexing thing for a long time. My dad, being a dentist, now sees this in his dental office frequently. Now he's having problems cognitively, and he's saying to himself, if this is what I think it is, it could be getting into my brain. It makes sense. Where is the mouth in proximity to the temporal lobe? They actually use the same blood supply. So what's happening when we have an overabundance of bad bacteria, just like with our gut, we talk about the gut biome or a gut, the balancing of your gut bacteria. We have oral bacteria in our mouth, and there's good and there's bad. So now if we have gum disease, and maybe I'm getting too deep, but I love this stuff.
No, this is good. This is really important. You know why I think this is important? Because honestly, before speaking with you, I have never heard the correlation between gum disease and Alzheimer's.
Right. Right.
So this is a very important piece of this that everybody should be hearing.
Thank you. Okay. So stop me though if I go too deep. Okay.
Oh, never.
With that being said, so we have going on with the good and the bad bacteria. I mean, again, we need a balance. And our lifestyle, this modern way of living is not conducive to a really balanced oral biome. And so we do run this risk of getting in a situation where our bad bacteria is winning over the good bacteria. It's going to overgrow. The bad bacteria I'm talking about is very aggressive. And I swear, if I were to describe to you what it does in the mouth, I would be describing what happens in Alzheimer's. It's so phenomenal how this bacteria is very destructive to tissue, and we are losing tissue in the brain of a person with Alzheimer's. This bacteria automatically causes inflammation, and it causes the body to essentially start attacking itself, which is not unlike what we hear about and we are reading about with Alzheimer's. And that being said, this particular bacteria loves blood. So it's looking for the heme in our blood, and it's going to burrow deeper into our gum tissue, and it's going to find a blood supply. And the blood supply is either going to take it right to the temporal lobe, as I talked about before, or it's going to take it into the bloodstream down into the heart, which we see that particular bacteria has been now proven to cause heart disease. So now this is starting to make sense, right? And then from the heart, it's being dispersed throughout the rest of the peripheral of the body. And it also has an opportunity to get also to the brain. So that is a pretty crazy story. And so with my dad, he was thinking, all right, let's just see if I can't get in front of this. So he and his doctors, and he had good doctors that worked with him, and they worked. So this is a medical regimen, a drug regimen that was actually overseen with provider oversight. And my dad was reversing symptom, and it was exciting. We kept thinking we were going to get in front of it. But as a result, he was never diagnosed with Alzheimer's. He was suspected, but then they overruled it because no one has ever reversed it. So when my dad finally died, and he did actually order his own autopsy, and which is interesting when you hear the next step, they did the autopsy. We were called in, and they said, not only does your dad have the worst pathology we've ever seen, this is as high level as you can get, and he should have been in a vegetative state for a very long time. Wow. And like I say, here he was ordering his autopsy, drinking champagne days before he has passed. They said, but the interesting thing, and where we all are just eager to get into the lab and figure this out, the structures in his brain are fine, meaning whatever happened didn't destroy his hippocampus, his amygdala, his entorhinal cortex. The areas that are hardest hit by Alzheimer's were actually salvageable, which is why he had memory all the way up until he died. So that's phenomenal. The U, which is where we did the autopsy, wanted to establish a lab. And so I said, yeah, let's do it. I mean,
Mhm.
how exciting is this? We're going to cure Alzheimer's disease. And lo and behold, there wasn't any funding. So the funding is really specific. And if the government doesn't want to fund a certain line of reasoning, they're not going to. And so the money wasn't there, and time was elapsing. And finally, I just said, I guess I just got to do it. So I don't have that money. So I started a foundation, a nonprofit, making it a tax incentive for an organization or an individual to donate to us. So then
Mhm.
we can then turn that right into the research that we're going to do. And on top of it, some of it will go to the prevention program, but the lion's share will be going into research. So
And
excited.
that really leads to the importance of the foundation and the independence-ness, if that's
Yes.
a word, of your foundation and your ability to manage what you want to discover and
Yeah.
what areas you feel are important. And I've always heard of Alzheimer's as being the diabetes of the brain.
Yeah.
And in also what you're explaining in your through your dad's experience, that it isn't just the sugar or the diabetes um symptoms that are deteriorating the brain cells. It's really coming from another area that is even more controllable in our daily lives.
Yeah, Jean, one of the interesting things, and I think a lot of people don't recognize this, Alzheimer's isn't new. I mean, it's
Mhm.
been around for sure for 100 years, and it could well be a lot longer than that.
Sure.
Couple different things that I think just kind of adds to this story and makes it make more sense. So we have Alois Alzheimer's, who is accredited with discovering this disease. He actually had a partner in his laboratory. His name is Carl Fisher. So this goes back 100 years, and Dr. Fisher and Dr. Alzheimer's have this patient, number one, and it's a woman who has this terrible condition where her mind is wasting.
Mhm.
And where Alzheimer's is talking about the protein that they're finding in the brain and saying that that's the problem, that's the problem. Fisher, on the other hand, said, look at her dentition. This woman, her teeth are falling out of her head. She has terrible, terrible gum disease.
Mhm.
Well, that didn't go very well. And so they parted ways as a matter of fact. And Alzheimer's has gone on, as you know, he's famous. And
Mhm.
Carl Fisher has been essentially relegated to almost obscurity. But what's interesting in reading his story, he went out and found a whole new research team, and they started finding more and more patients like that first individual that
Wow,
had this
interesting.
wasting disease, but they also have been losing teeth due to gum disease.
Hmm.
So what's exciting about that is we're just now seeing this new influx of information to support this. And it's called the microbial infectious hypothesis of Alzheimer's. And that is what we are selectively funding. And here's the best part. No matter what happens, and you can't predict science. No, I'm not expecting to. But this scientific journey is going to be so incredibly valuable to the understanding of Alzheimer's. To your point, is it diabetes 3? We're gonna unearth, being that we're able to quickly move and maneuver and do things in this laboratory, we're intimately in that space and we're dedicated to getting through it.
Mhm.
We're gonna find out if there's more to that and that contributes to the idea this is a diabetic condition, that there's a sugar component, if that's what or lack of insulin or what have you. If it is truly the idea of proteins, which I suspect not, just because amyloid is it's actually part of the brain's immune system. So by having amyloid present in a person's brain, it tells you that something got through the blood-brain barrier that should not be there. So in my like non-scientific explanation, I see that as the canary in the coal mine more than the bad guy. But
Mhm.
more on that later. But with that being said, our scientific journey is going to bring so much value to the entire understanding of this horrible presently fatal disease, there's no downside. There's all upside.
It's really
exciting.
It's really fascinating. And it's just as a side note, your gut biome, that has been such a hot topic over the years. Everybody's, talking about probiotics and paying attention to your gut biome, and your gut runs your whole body. And what your research is pointing towards is the importance of our oral hygiene and preventing periodontal disease, or whatever that happens, whatever is going on in our mouths. And our mouth is one of the highest places in our body that creates bacteria, which the point that I want to make is not really within your scope, but I wonder what other diseases can be affected by our oral hygiene, and with the hopes of the foundation and the work towards Alzheimer's and what it's going to bring to the Alzheimer's arena, how that might affect research for other people that are thinking outside the box, like you and your foundation could bring to other diseases. Just as an interesting thought.
No, that's great. And I think you're right. I think that there's going to be, this is just I'm attending there's a convention coming up next week, and it is the largest Alzheimer's. And I know this is time stamped, so somebody watching this in 6 months probably won't get that, but it's an annual conference put on by the Alzheimer's Association. It is international, and it's staggering when you look at the topics that are being covered in every single manner. The people that are coming to this, we have a lot of great scientific minds that are tackling this disease, which is so incredibly hopeful. So I don't.
And no, that's interesting to find out as well. And so let's talk a little bit about what we can do for ourselves. And then I want to circle back to the foundation. But as consumers, how do we better take care of our oral hygiene? And I'm blown away with your dad's story. But before you answer my question, I just want to make a point. I'm really blown away by your dad's story, and if he wasn't a dentist, it's the butterfly effect. Where would you be? Where would the foundation be? It wouldn't be if your dad wasn't a dentist and he just developed Alzheimer's and went through that tragic process and then passed. But what the legacy that he left by being I can assume, an incredibly intelligent, intuitive doctor, that he was able to self-recognize, oh, look, this is happening, and look what I can do for myself, and almost run tests on himself to be able to move the ball forward in this very difficult disease arena.
Absolutely. And yeah, I really loved my dad. He was a great guy. And yes, very selfless. He experimented on himself, and that wasn't pleasant. I mean, you just don't know how to it's I call it the 4Ds. It's the drug, dose, delivery, duration. And we just don't have that perfected when it comes to the brain. So there were, it was tough. He blew his gut biome, which is exactly what we don't want to do, as a result of medicating himself. That took a bit of adjusting and trying to figure that out. But he was dedicated. And ironically, the best part of this is he didn't know he had Alzheimer's. He was told he didn't. So he was thinking all the while he was going to carve out a small percentage of misdiagnoses. So Alzheimer's is a dumping bucket until we find out there's something called Lewy body. Now we carve that out. Now we have something called CTE. We pull that out. And he was thinking, well, maybe, I'll save some people. What I'm doing right now seems marginally effective. And when I have this autopsy and they're able to determine fully what I have, I might be able to help 5% of people. Lo and behold, he had Alzheimer's. So it is
amazing.
a really crazy serendipitous story, if I could.
Yeah, really amazing. Very, very much amazing. And so what can we do as
Yes.
consumers, and how do we how can we better take care of our oral hygiene? And what are you finding, or what are you seeing out there that can effectively make a difference for us?
Absolutely. We're now working on this. So this is a great time for us to be putting this information forward. The first and most important thing is going to be getting in with your dentist. And I know dental insurance kind of stands in the way of that. So some people, if they are not insured, are hesitant to go into the dental office because they think it's going to be expensive. And it is. I ran a dental office. I understand what those costs are. I see a dentist. I do see those, they keep going up. The one thing to consider, though, this could be what saves your life. And if you knew it and you looked at it in that regard, I think you would look at it a little differently. We drink coffee every day. That's that whole adage that people use. How much are we spending in those lattes or what have you? And is that benefiting us and making us better? Is that extending our lives? But when you think about it, if you go to your dentist, what I'm saying is go to your dentist, get your teeth clean, ask about the health of your gums. That is the very first thing that you can do to help yourself. And then on top of that, ask about home care. So it's a trite term. We use it in dental all the time, but it's essentially, what are you doing at your house to supplement what they're doing in the dental office? You're going to see the dentist twice a year, but you're going to be needing to do something every single day. And that's at the very least going to be brushing your teeth. But it also incorporates flossing, which a lot of people, that's in my way. But it is so important to incorporate into your oral routine. And then if you have periodontal disease, you need to take that on as serious as a heart attack. Don't dismiss it. If I can't tell you how many patients would say, yeah, okay, so I have periodontal disease. What? It doesn't hurt. Oh, by the way, I just described Alzheimer's again. So periodontal disease isn't really this all-alarm fire where you've gotten, you broke your arm and you need a cast. So it's easy for the patient to say, yeah, what? I mean, I'd rather do something else. And yet it's probably the most important thing to do to take care of not only your body health and your mouth health, but now we're learning potentially your brain's health. Does that help?
Yes, very much so. Are there particular types of products that are better to use? Are there...
Yeah. It starts in the mouth, right? And that oral biome is meant to be balanced. So if you're killing bacteria, it's indiscriminate which ones are going to not build back quick enough. Giving
are you killing the good bacteria versus the bad bacteria?
Yeah. So I would say I don't recommend any mouthwash whatsoever. There may be some maybe alkaline. I wouldn't even know, and I'm not in the position to probably be to that point. But I also I strongly support, and as simple as it is, and it goes back to what did our grandmothers do? What did we used to do? Hydrogen peroxide, believe it or not, that is the simplest thing you can have in your bathroom. And I caution two things. Never swallow it, you'll vomit. And also it is acidic.
No bueno.
I know it's not good. But it is acidic. So you want to minimize how much you use it and how long you use it. It's a happy balance. So I say 60 seconds in your mouth. It's a 3% dilution, which is the common brown bottle that you see everywhere. It's super inexpensive. You can actually dilute it with water, maybe make it down to 1.5. Still very effective. And I would do that a couple times a week is about all you need. And that's if you're really, really concerned. But as always, talk to your dentist, talk to your hygienist, get their I'm just Anna Shelander of the Curing Alzheimer's Disease Foundation, right? I do not have a dental degree. I am not a professional hygienist. I just worked with them and I've read all the literature, but ask them. They have the licenses. They're the ones that are doing it day in, day out. And they're going to tell you really frankly what you can do to help your oral health.
think most importantly is to know that you should ask the question.
Absolutely.
Because prior to this conversation, I didn't realize how important that those questions are. And it's interesting because I have a family member that has a relative there's questionable whether there's some cognitive issues, and never once would I have thought that maybe this could be an area that could be discussed. So fascinating.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. One thing
fascinating.
we're going to be doing, and I'd hope to come back at some point and talk a little bit more fully about it.
Yes, we're going to
Um,
cover that. Yes, absolutely.
I
Let's
would
talk
love
about
to.
that
I'd love to
now.
come back because
Yeah.
we're going to be talking diet. We're going to be talking about meditation. We've got a bunch of things in process, if I
Mhm.
can. But I'd like to come back because what we're going to be doing is creating essentially an advocacy for the patient so that you as a patient, Jeanne, will go into your dental office and we're going to outfit you at part of our foundation's mission here in prevention. We're going to give you all the tools you need to advocate for your own oral health. So you'll ask the questions and understand what you're asking, and you'll know what you're hearing back. You'll understand it. We're gonna be adding video asset to that so people can see this online so that they can understand how to properly brush your teeth. How about that? How to properly floss. How about these are, it's interesting. It's just not there. And we're going to make it readily available. And we think we're gonna help a lot of people in so doing.
Yeah, I would be honored to have you back as often as you would like, and to walk with you through this, and then through the foundation's process as you're discovering or you're coming across areas that you have the ability to talk about. We can definitely get that out to people because it's such an important message. Without a doubt, yes, you are invited back whenever you wish.
Thank you. I appreciate
Open
that.
invitation. And so the next steps for the foundation, where are you, from what you can talk to us about, where are you headed next, and what does that look like?
So right now we're just moving right into the research. So
Mhm.
my job is to work with corporate foundations to see through that they could potentially help us in supporting that goal of funding. We will be, communicating this. There'll be blog posts. Please, I would encourage anybody to go to our website, which is curingalzheimersdisease.com. There you're going to find current information about prevention and risk factors, but down the line we'll be publishing press releases and updates from the lab that are of value to just about anybody. It's exciting stuff. Science is a little slow, so it's not going to be a daily thing, which I think everybody appreciates. But we will be chronicling what's happening there, and bringing new insights as close to the real time as possible. Our prevention program is going to be amazing, and we're starting it here in Minnesota. This is where I'm based, and we will then be deploying it through Train the Trainer programs across the country. So this is going to also be so exciting. We're going to bring it to everybody who wants it, as opposed to you needing to ferret out where are we and where. We will bring it to you, and eventually this will be all online, so it'll be even more accessible. All of that takes time. All of it's very exciting, and it is a to be continued.
No, that's great. And I look forward to all of that. And so you are also, as you mentioned in the very beginning, self-funded.
Yeah.
And so how can listeners assist with that? Where are you receiving
Yep.
funding from, and where are areas that you could receive funding from that people can connect you with?
Thank you. That is so nice of you. I really appreciate it. I'm an unfunded resource. I will not be taking any money from this at all. All of our money goes directly to the research and the development of the prevention program. Our website does have donation abilities. We take online safely. You could pay with credit card, PayPal, any which way you want. You can send a check to our foundation. It's really going to be up to the individual. Anything, if you want a tax deduction statement, we will get that right back to you. Anything above $250 automatically gets a tax deductible statement for your taxes for the following year. So We try to make it as easy as possible. And I'm hoping that that's what people are looking for.
Great. Well, so where do people find the foundation, and how do they get in touch?
Okay, so our foundation is online at www.curingalzheimersdisease.com. So that's us. You can find us by Googling Minnesota Alzheimer's Foundation. It's the Alzheimer's Legacy Lab. That also will bring you right directly to us, and that's the lab that we are presently funding. And I think, is that it? Or, I mean, again, just...
Yeah, no, that's fine. As long as there's an address, and we'll make sure that we put that in the show notes as well.
Yeah, please.
And yes, definitely. And so, Anna, I want to really thank you for being here, but more importantly, thanking you for your hard work and being able to continue your dad's legacy and the gift that he gave to you and what you're going to give to all of us and make a difference in this really difficult space that Alzheimer's is. So thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here. So we'll look forward to the next time, and we'll talk more in depth of the areas that are coming about.
You got it. Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening today. Today's show was sponsored by Seaside Solutions, my financial services company. As a business owner, it's easy to be pulled in many different directions, and often taking care of yourself plummets to the bottom of the list. For me, I find myself outside to reground. My time outdoors helps me manage my day more effectively and be more present for my clients. Through this, Discover Rising Tides was born. At Seaside Solutions, we truly believe that education is the foundation of financial wellness. Our primary focus is to provide guidance that is designed to help you achieve your long-term financial goals and visions. Working with a plan allows space for doing more things that you love, like being outside to make the inside better. If I can help you create or realign your plan, or if you would like to be added to my weekly newsletter, please let me know. This week's topic was 5 ways to set more achievable goals. Your referral means the big, beautiful world to me, and if I can help, please let me know. And thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.